Before the God we know today, ancient civilizations worshipped powerful deities who shaped the world's earliest myths and beliefs. These gods ruled skies, seas, and the underworld, each with stories full of mystery, conflict, and creation. But what happened to these forgotten gods? How did their legends influence the rise of monotheism? In this video, we'll explore the fascinating tales of the gods that came before God, uncovering lost histories, and revealing how ancient faiths paved the way for the beliefs that still shape us today. Get ready to journey back in time. Before the concept of a single all-powerful God became dominant in human history, ancient civilizations worshipped a multitude of gods, powerful, complex, and often deeply human in their traits. These gods ruled over nature, fate, and the cosmos, reflecting humanity's earliest attempts to explain the mysteries of life, death, and the universe. This pantheon of deities, varying across cultures and epochs, formed the spiritual foundation from which later monotheistic faiths would emerge, evolve, and in some ways, rebel against. In this exploration, we will journey back through time to meet the gods that came before God. We'll understand their stories, their roles in ancient society, and how their legacies continue to echo through religious thought, mythology, and culture. 1. The rise of polytheism, understanding ancient pantheons. Early humans lived close to nature and were deeply affected by its forces: storms, rivers, seasons, birth, death, and the cycles of the sun and moon. To make sense of these overwhelming experiences, they envisioned spirits or gods who controlled these phenomena. Unlike the abstract monotheistic God, these deities were often anthropomorphic, exhibiting human emotions, flaws, and virtues. Mesopotamian gods, the first known pantheon. One of the earliest documented polytheistic religions arose in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, around 3000 BCE. The Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians worshipped gods like Anu, sky god; Enlil, god of air and storms; Enki, water and wisdom; and Inanna, love and war. These gods were deeply intertwined with human affairs, engaging in mythic battles, love affairs, and intrigues much like humans themselves. The famous Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest literary works, is rich with these gods influencing destiny, mortality, and cosmic order. The Mesopotamian deities were seen as both creators and destroyers, unpredictable and capricious, but essential to life. Egyptian pantheon, gods of life, death, and the afterlife. In ancient Egypt, gods like Ra, sun god; Osiris, god of the afterlife; Isis, goddess of magic; and Anubis, god of embalming, dominated spiritual life. Egyptians built monumental temples and elaborate rituals around these gods, reflecting a worldview deeply connected to cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The Egyptian gods were often depicted as human-animal hybrids, symbolizing the connection between nature and the divine. Their myths emphasized the balance of order, ma'at, and chaos, which was essential for the cosmos to function. Greek and Roman gods, the pantheon of Olympus. Later, the Greeks developed a complex pantheon centered on Mount Olympus, including Zeus, Hera, Athena, Apollo, and many others. These gods were immortal but flawed, embodying human traits such as jealousy, love, pride, and vengeance. The Greeks' rich mythology has influenced Western culture, literature, and art for millennia. The Romans adopted and adapted these gods, renaming them and emphasizing their roles as protectors of the state and society. 2. Themes in ancient mythology. What these gods represented. Though diverse, many ancient deities shared common themes that spoke to universal human concerns: creation and cosmic order. Many gods were creators or sustainers of the universe. For example, the Mesopotamian god Marduk defeated chaos dragon Tiamat to create the world. Similarly, Egyptian mythology portrayed the sun god Ra as the origin of life, sailing his solar bark across the sky each day. These myths expressed humanity's longing for order in a chaotic world, providing a narrative that the cosmos was not random but ruled by divine forces. Death and the afterlife. Ancient gods often governed the transition between life and death. Osiris' story in Egypt emphasized resurrection and eternal life, while the Greek Hades ruled the underworld. These beliefs shaped burial customs, moral codes, and the hope for a life beyond death, reflecting deep human anxieties and hopes. Morality, justice, and fate. Gods frequently upheld justice or controlled fate. The Greek goddess Themis personified divine law, while the Egyptian concept of Ma'at represented truth and balance. Ancient people sought to understand their place in the universe and the consequences of their actions, often believing the gods rewarded or punished humans based on behavior. 3. The transition to monotheism. The one God emerges. Around the Late Bronze Age and Early Iron Age, circa 1200 to 500 BCE, new religious ideas began to emerge, most notably the idea of a single, supreme God who was all-powerful, all-knowing, and morally perfect. The God of Abraham, from many to one. The Hebrew Bible introduced Yahweh, a singular God who demanded exclusive worship and moral obedience. This was a radical departure from polytheistic traditions. Yahweh was not only a creator, but a covenant maker, deeply concerned with justice and righteousness. This move toward monotheism didn't erase the old gods overnight. Instead, many ancient deities were reinterpreted as angels, demons, or symbolic forces, while their stories influenced biblical narratives and imagery. Monotheism's cultural impact. Monotheism offered a unifying spiritual vision that transcended tribal or city-state gods. It provided a foundation for the world's three major monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Yet, echoes of earlier gods remained. Biblical references to cherubim resemble ancient winged creatures, and many biblical motifs trace back to Mesopotamian or Canaanite myths. 4. Why study the gods that came before God? Studying these ancient gods enriches our understanding of religion, culture, and human psychology. It reveals how humanity's spiritual journey evolved, adapting old stories into new frameworks. Myth as metaphor and memory. Rather than dismissing ancient gods as false, it's more fruitful to see myths as metaphors conveying deep truths about existence. Chaos versus order, mortality, justice, and transcendence. They also preserve cultural memory, revealing how ancient peoples related to their world and each other. Influence on modern faith and culture. Many symbols and themes from these ancient gods persist today. Concepts like the flood story, the serpent as a symbol of evil, or resurrection have parallels across cultures and religions. Understanding this continuity helps bridge divides and appreciate the shared human heritage behind diverse beliefs. 5. Some notable ancient gods who came before God. Anu, Mesopotamia. Anu was the supreme sky god, the father of gods, who symbolized the infinite heavens. Although his direct worship waned over time, his position as the primordial sky deity influenced the idea of a transcendent, overarching divine presence. Enlil, Mesopotamia. Enlil, god of wind and storm, was a powerful but sometimes harsh figure. He controlled fate and was seen as an executive divine authority, illustrating early concepts of divine governance. Tiamat, Mesopotamia. The chaos dragon Tiamat represented primordial chaos before creation. Her defeat by Marduk symbolized the triumph of order over disorder, a theme that resonates deeply in many religious traditions. Ra, Egypt. The sun god Ra was central to Egyptian cosmology, symbolizing life, power, and rebirth. His daily journey across the sky and through the underworld was a metaphor for the eternal cycle of life and death. Osiris, Egypt. Osiris, god of resurrection and judge of the dead, embodied hope for eternal life and justice after death. His myth influenced Christian ideas of resurrection. Zeus, Greece. Zeus was king of the gods, ruler of the sky and thunder. His complex personality reflected human traits and the idea that even divine power is not without limits or challenges. 6. The legacy. How the ancient gods shaped today's spiritual landscape. While modern monotheistic religions worship one god, the ancient gods' shadows linger in many ways. Religious symbols. Many symbols, such as the serpent, the dove, or the rainbow, originated in ancient myths and were reinterpreted in monotheistic contexts. Stories and parallels. Biblical stories like the flood share remarkable similarities with earlier myths from Mesopotamia. Psychological archetypes. Carl Jung and others have identified ancient gods as archetypes within the human psyche, universal patterns of thought and behavior that still influence us. Cultural identity. For many indigenous and pagan groups, ancient gods remain living spiritual beings, representing an alternative or complementary spirituality. Embracing the divine story's full depth. Humanity's quest to understand existence, purpose, and the divine is one of the oldest and most profound aspects of our collective story. Throughout millennia, humans have sought meaning in the cosmos by telling stories, myths and legends filled with gods, spirits, heroes, and cosmic battles. These narratives are more than ancient fables. They are living windows into the human soul, reflecting our deepest fears, hopes, and questions. The gods that came before God, the myriad deities of ancient polytheistic religions, are not mere historical curiosities or relics to be forgotten. Rather, they are keys to unlocking the layered complexity of human spirituality. Their myths, symbols, and mysteries invite us to see religion not as a simple or static monolith, but as a rich tapestry woven from countless stories, cultures, and lived experiences. To embrace this divine story's full depth is to honor the entirety of the human spiritual journey. 1. The ancient gods as windows into the human spirit. Long before the rise of monotheistic religions, civilizations across the globe worshipped many gods, each embodying different aspects of nature, human personality, and cosmic order. These gods were not distant abstractions. They were deeply relatable, reflecting human emotions such as love, jealousy, wrath, and mercy. They were as flawed and complex as the people who worshiped them. The relatability of the ancient gods. For example, the Greek gods of Olympus often displayed very human traits. Zeus, the king of gods, was powerful but prone to temptation and anger. Athena was wise yet stern. Aphrodite was beautiful and capricious. These divine personalities allowed people to explore their own emotions and struggles through mythic narratives. In Mesopotamia, gods like Enlil or Inanna engaged in cosmic politics and battles, illustrating humanity's struggle with order, chaos, and survival. Egyptian gods, such as Osiris and Isis, told stories of death, resurrection, and eternal life, giving hope amid the mystery of mortality. By personifying natural forces and human conditions, these gods made the ineffable more accessible. Their stories were teaching tools, ethical guides, and spiritual frameworks. 2. Myths as the language of the divine. Religion is fundamentally about connection between humanity and something greater. But the divine is elusive, transcending human language and understanding. Myths, then become a vital language for expressing spiritual truths that cannot be captured by logic or fact alone. Myth beyond literalism. Myths are often misunderstood as just stories or primitive explanations, but this diminishes their value. Myths operate on symbolic and metaphorical levels. They reveal psychological, moral, and spiritual realities encoded in narrative form. Joseph Campbell famously described myth as the public dream of a culture, a shared narrative that expresses the collective unconscious and spiritual yearnings of a people. Myths speak to universal themes: creation, death, and rebirth, the hero's journey, the battle between order and chaos, and the search for transcendence. Thus, the gods that came before God are not false gods, but embodiments of eternal truths. Their stories explore aspects of human experience that remain relevant regardless of one's religious affiliation. 3. The tapestry of religion, a layered, living tradition. Religion is often viewed through the lens of strict dogma or institutional authority. However, the reality is far richer and more complex. Spiritual traditions are tapestries, woven from many threads of cultural, historical, and mystical experiences. Layers of belief and practice. When monotheism arose, it did not spontaneously generate from a vacuum. Instead, it emerged from within a milieu shaped by older beliefs and rituals. Many monotheistic ideas, symbols, and stories have roots in earlier polytheistic traditions. For example, the biblical flood story has clear parallels with the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh and the Atrahasis myth. The figure of the serpent, associated with temptation and evil in Christianity, echoes serpent symbolism in earlier religions. The concept of resurrection in Christianity and Islam parallels Egyptian myths of Osiris and other dying and rising gods. These connections show how spiritual traditions build upon and reinterpret earlier narratives to address evolving human needs and insights. 4. Embracing diversity in the divine story. To truly embrace the full depth of the divine story is to recognize and honor the spiritual diversity that has existed throughout human history. This means resisting the urge to dismiss or marginalize ancient gods or alternative spiritualities. Respecting indigenous and pagan traditions. Many indigenous peoples around the world maintain vibrant spiritual traditions that include polytheistic or animistic beliefs. These traditions often emphasize harmony with nature, ancestral reverence, and communal rituals. Embracing the divine story's depth means valuing these traditions not as primitive, but as profound expressions of humanity's relationship with the sacred. Recognizing the continuum of faith. Instead of viewing religion as a linear progression from falsehood to truth, it can be seen as a continuum, each tradition contributing insights and experiences to the unfolding human understanding of the divine. This approach fosters interfaith respect and dialogue, allowing people to learn from one another's spiritual wisdom. 5. The psychological and archetypal power of ancient gods. Modern psychology, particularly the work of Carl Jung, has helped reveal the archetypal significance of ancient gods. Jung proposed that these gods represent universal patterns within the human psyche, archetypes that shape how we experience ourselves and the world. Gods as archetypes. For instance, the Great Mother archetype appears in goddesses like Isis, Demeter, and Gaia, representing nurturing, fertility, and the cycles of life. The trickster archetype is reflected in deities like Hermes or Loki, symbolizing chaos, change, and the breaking of norms. The hero archetype appears in mythic figures who undergo transformation and redemption. These archetypes exist within each person and influence behavior, dreams, and spirituality. Recognizing ancient gods as archetypes allows for a deeper engagement with myth that transcends literal belief. 6. The transformative potential of embracing the divine story. Engaging with the full depth of the divine story invites personal and collective transformation. Personal growth through myth. Myths offer pathways for personal growth and spiritual awakening. The hero's journey, a common motif across cultures, mirrors our own inner quests for meaning, purpose, and wholeness. By exploring ancient myths, individuals can uncover hidden parts of themselves, confront shadow aspects, and find hope in cycles of death and rebirth. Healing and reconciliation. Acknowledging the spiritual value of diverse traditions can also foster healing on a societal level. Religious intolerance and conflict often arise from narrow interpretations and fear of difference. Embracing the divine story's layered nature encourages empathy, respect, and reconciliation, reminding us that humanity's search for the sacred is universal. 7. The role of modern spirituality. Integrating ancient wisdom. In the contemporary world, many seek spiritual experiences outside traditional religions. This openness offers opportunities to integrate ancient wisdom with modern insights. Reclaiming ancient myths. Movements such as Neopaganism, indigenous spiritual revivals, and mythopoetic literature draw consciously on ancient gods and myths to reconnect with deeper spiritual roots. This reclamation is not about returning to the past, but weaving timeless wisdom into present-day life. Interfaith and mystical dialogues. Interfaith dialogues highlight commonalities across religions, often tracing shared symbols and themes back to ancient origins. Mystical traditions within Judaism, Kabbalah, Christianity, Christian mysticism, and Islam, Sufism, also engage deeply with symbolic and mythic dimensions of the divine, reflecting the layered nature of spiritual truth. 8. Challenges to embracing the full divine story. While embracing this rich tapestry is rewarding, it also poses challenges. Cultural appropriation and respect. There is a fine line between honoring ancient traditions and appropriating them superficially. True engagement requires respect, study, and sensitivity to the origins and meanings of these myths. Reconciling faith and scholarship. For believers, reconciling modern historical and archaeological scholarship about ancient gods with faith in a singular God can be complex. Yet many find that understanding these layers enriches rather than diminishes their spiritual life, revealing the profound human journey behind faith. The divine story as a living tapestry. The gods that came before God invite us to see spirituality as a living, evolving tapestry, woven from diverse threads of myth, culture, and human experience. They remind us that our search for meaning is ancient and shared across time and space. By embracing the divine story's full depth, we open ourselves to richer understanding, deeper compassion, and more authentic connection with the sacred mystery at the heart of existence. Rather than discarding the old for the new, we can honor the entire journey, knowing that every story, every god, every symbol contributes to the vast and beautiful mosaic of human faith. In this embracing, we find not only knowledge, but wisdom, that the divine transcends all names and forms, yet reveals itself through the infinite variety of human imagination and devotion. The gods of old may have faded from temples and tongues, but their stories still echo in the myths, symbols, and scriptures we carry today. Understanding them isn't about denying God. It's about uncovering the layers of human faith, wonder, and divine search. If these ancient deities shaped our spiritual past, what might they still teach us today? Thanks for watching The Gods That Came Before God. If this journey sparked something in you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more hidden truths and ancient wisdom. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning.